In this video, we have covered everything you need to know about JavaScript arrays. So please consider watching it till the end. Hi all, welcome to the complete JavaScript beginners tutorial by CodAffection. First of all, let me ask you a favor. If you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't yet. And please like and share this video with your friends and colleagues. So without further ado, let's get started with the topic. Now consider we are writing a JavaScript program. Within it, we want to store values of similar kind. For example, we have some fruits name to be stored in our program and you don't know arrays yet, then we'll be declaring variables for each fruits we have. Like fruit 1 initialized with apple, then mango is assigned to fruit 2 and fruit 3 is assigned with banana. But this is not at all convenient. For each value we have to have a variable and we have to come up with a variable name also, like fruit 1, fruit 2, fruit 3, etc., which itself will be confusing in rest of the program. It is not easy to remember these variable names here. To address this particular issue, we have arrays in JavaScript. So a JavaScript array is an ordered collection of values. So here we have the pictorial representation of an array, and all of the values inside the array is put into a collection one after other. So apple, mango, banana, and this whole array is referred with a single name, fruits. Each of these values inside the array can be accessed in the same order they appear in this array here. We will look into that in a bit. Now let's look different ways to create JavaScript array. So here we have the first method, which is creating arrays through Array.literal or Initializer. Here we have a pair of square brackets. Within it we can pass the collection of values separated with a comma. Let's create the array inside this program here. So instead of creating variables for each values, we could create an array like this, fruits. So here we have the Array.literal or Array Initializer. So all of the elements inside the array will be passed within these square brackets here. So here we have the first element, apple, then mango, and banana. So this way of creating an array is called as Array.literal or Initializer. We have already learned what is a literal. Literals are the fixed values that we pass in our program. That is what we exactly doing here. We are passing fixed or hard-coded values through this array here. So this is a literal. Since this is an array, we call it as Array.literal, which is also known as Array Initializer. From now onwards, instead of creating these separate variables for each values, we'll be using arrays when we have values of similar kind, like these values here, apple, mango, banana. All of them can be stored into an ordered collection like this array and referred with a single name, fruits. If you want to make this array more fun, you could pass corresponding emojis for these fruits here. I will be copying corresponding emojis from this website here, Emojipedia. So first of all, we have apple. So I will be copying the corresponding emoji for apple from here, and we could just paste that within this program here. Let me comment this fruits here. Now we have the array fruits. Within it we can pass the emoji like this. Like this, I have copied emojis for rest of the fruits also. Don't worry, it is perfectly fine to put emojis in our code, but don't forget to enclose them within codes like this. Now let me create another array, friends. So let me provide few names here. So here we have the array friends. Within it we have the names of our friends. So far the arrays that we have created, all of the values are of same type. All of these are string. This is also string. In JavaScript arrays, we can mix different data types also. For example, inside this array we can pass number, boolean, etc. It is totally fine to mix data types in an array. Let me print this array to the developer console. See, here we have the array with given values. The number of elements within an array can be retrieved with this property length. So inside this array we have 5 elements. Let's check that with this fruits array also. As you can see, inside this array we have 3 elements. Now it is also possible to create an array without any value inside it. So we call such arrays as empty array, and this is how it looks like. Just a pair of square brackets. If you check the length of this empty array, you could see that it is 0. See? So that's all about creating arrays with array literal or array initializer. Now, before discussing second method of creating an array, let's check the type of an array. So here we have the log statement. Within it, I will call this operator typeof on this array fruits. See, it is of the type object. So all the arrays that we create comes under the data type object. If you want to be more specific, you could say all arrays are the objects of this class, array class. So all the arrays that we create, independent of the method of creation, all of those arrays will be an object of the class array class. I know we haven't covered JavaScript classes yet. For now, you could think of a class as a factory that is used for creating objects of its type. So the array class is used for creating objects of its type array. More about class will be learned in later sessions. For all the classes, there will be a function with the same name that of the class, and that function is used to create the object of the class. So there will be a function called array to create objects of this array, and which is called as constructor function. It is also possible to know the constructor used for creating the object. For that, you could just do this. Here we have the log statement. We have this object fruits. From that we can access this constructor and then dot name. So here we have the function array constructor, which is used for creating objects of this array class here. More about classes or constructor will be discussed under object-oriented programming concept. For now, that's enough. So the second method of creating an array is using array constructor. Through the constructor, we can create the array like this. First of all, we'll be using this keyword new, and then after that we can call the function like this, which is exactly similar to this function called here. So we can also skip this new keyword here. Let me show you how this works. So here we have the array colors, and I will be creating the array using the array constructor. So first of all, we have the keyword new, then the constructor array. Within that, we can pass the values. So these are the colors saved inside the array: blue, red, and yellow. So here we are creating an object of the class array using the keyword new. So the created array will be having these 3 values, nothing else. Let's check that within this log statement here, colors. An array is returned with the provided values here. If you want to skip this new keyword here, it is totally fine. It returns the same array as before. When we use the array constructor, we have to be concerned with some special cases. For example, here we have the array x, and I will be creating the array with this function array. Let me pass few integers inside this function. The created array will be having those passed integers here. The ender game will be different if we pass a single integer like this. It creates an array with 3 elements within it. Let me print the array length also, x.length. So you could see the length 3. When this function is having a single value and which is integer, then this function assumes that the passed value is the length of the array which is to be created. So here the function is creating an array with 3 elements. Each of the elements value will be undefined. Okay, all of the elements will be having the value undefined. So when we pass a single integer to the array, the function returns an array with the given number of elements. All of the elements inside the array will be undefined. Now if you are calling the function with another type of value, single value. I mean, if you are passing multiple values, of course it will create an array with given values, even all of those values are integers. So this special case will be happened when we pass a single value and which is an integer. If we pass boolean value true here, it will create an array with the given value. See, if you pass a string, the created array will be having that value. Now if you want to create an empty array like this, you just need to call the function array without any parameter. See, here we have the empty array. Now if you don't like this special behavior of array constructor or function, we have final method of creating an array, which is using this function Array.of. So we'll be calling the function Array.of. It will return an array with passed values. With this method, you don't have to worry about this special case with the array constructor. Let's try that here. We could call the function Array.of. Into this function, we can pass values like this. As this name indicates, this will create an array of given values here. Let's print the array here, fruits. See, here we have the array. You don't have to worry about passing single integer to the function. It will only create the array with given value. So an array with given values will be created. So that's all about different ways to create an array. Now let's discuss how to retrieve values inside an array. Before that, I want to talk about index of an array. As I mentioned before, elements in an array are retrieved in the order they appear. When we talk about order, it is very common to think in terms of position like this. So this is at position 1, 2, 3. In terms of programming language, we'll be using another term, index, and which is starting from 0 instead of starting from 1 like position. So this apple is at 0th index, mango at index 1, index 2 is banana. Commonly in our real life, we start counting from 1, 2, 3 and so on, element at first position, second position, third and so on. But programming, we use index, it starts from 0. If you haven't heard of index before, you might be confused. Don't worry, you will get used to start counting from 0 through index, especially when you work with arrays. So this array name fruits is referring to the whole array here. In order to access elements within it, we have to use index along with this array name fruits. Let's check that here. So I will just recreate the array here. So here we have the array fruits. In order to access elements within it, we could do this fruits, which is the array name. Along with the array, we have to pass a pair of square brackets. Within it, we could pass the index. If we pass 0 here, the value at 0th index will be returned, which is apple, then mango, banana. Instead of passing the hard-coded index number here, if somewhere in your program, if you have a variable to store the index like this, fruit index, let it be 0. Instead of passing the hard-coded value, then you could directly pass this index variable here. If we change the index here, corresponding element will be retrieved here. Now let me remove this variable here and let's pass the hard-coded index 0. If you want to update an element inside the array, first of all, you could refer the array with the same method here. So this is referring to the first element. If you want to change the value at this place, just pass the new value here, avocado. So here we updated the element at 0th index and the updated value is returned here. You could see the same if you print the whole array. So first element we have avocado. If you want to add one more element to this array, you could just do this. Just specify the new index where you want to insert the element. So all of the indices 0, 1, 2 are occupied. Now let's add an element at index 3. It will be grape. See, here we have the updated array. Now instead of passing the index 3, let's pass 5. So the 5th index will be occupied with grape and the indices 3 and 4 will be empty. There won't be anything. If you try to access those indices here, it will return undefined. See? Now if you want to delete elements from the end of an array, there is a simple way to do it. Let me get rid of these lines here. Now to delete elements from the end of the array, we just need to update the length property here. Currently the length is 3, so we have apple, mango and banana. If I update the length to 2, then only these 2 elements will be there inside the array, as you can see here. So the given count of elements from the first will be reserved and rest of the elements inside the array will be deleted. So this is a simple way to delete elements from the end of an array. There are some functions or ways to delete elements from end of an array or from the start or in between. We will discuss those things in future sessions. Now finally we want to discuss one more thing, which is 2D array, or you could say array within an array. Just understand the concept if you can. It will be helpful when you come up with such a requirement. So far we have discussed one-dimensional array. In one-dimensional array, we just need a single number like this 0 or 1 or 2 to refer a single element within the array. But there are some situations where we need two numbers to refer a single element. So I have few examples here. So here we have the first example where a two-dimensional array will be necessary. So here we have a two-dimensional matrix. Hope we learn all of these in our high secondary classes. So the first element can only be referred with two numbers. First is row. So the first row, second row, third row. So only knowing the number of row, we can't specify a number. We also need the column number. So to specify this element here, we have to mention that like second row, second column. So which is referring to this number 10 here. And here we have the chessboard. The position of an object within this chessboard can easily be represented with a two-dimensional array. Let's create a two-dimensional array to represent this chessboard here. Let me get rid of these codes here. And here we have the variable chessboard. Let's assign it with a two-dimensional array. So a two-dimensional array is a normal array like this. Instead of having simple values like this, we'll be having arrays in place of these values here. Instead of this 23, we'll be having another array. This will be another array like that. So if this array is representing a chessboard, inside this first array here, we'll be having the pieces inside this first array here. And then second, then third, and so on. So you could think of these arrays as a row. In chessboard, we'll be having 8 rows. So currently we have 4 arrays here. Let me duplicate this here. So now we have 8 rows. So initially the first piece on first row will be rook. Then we have knight, then bishop, queen, king, and so on. So here we have the array representing the first row. Initially, before starting the game, the position of pieces at the last row will also be same. So I will just copy paste that here. And this second row and this row just before the last row will be having pawn. And rest of these rows are empty. So I will just pass with empty string like this. So here we have a two-dimensional array representing this chessboard here. In order to retrieve this rook here, we will do this. First of all, we have the log statement and then the name of the array, which is chessboard, and then if we pass 0 here, it will return the entire array at the index 0. This is at 0th index, this is at index 1, then 2, then 4, up to 7. So since this is returning another array, in order to access a value inside this, we can use the index again, like this. So if we pass 0, 0, it will return the rook here. If we pass 1 here, it will return knight, and so on. So that's how we can access values from a two-dimensional array. If you want to access this pawn here, so this is at index 1. So 1, 0 gives this pawn here. Now let's make a move here. The first player moves this pawn to this position. Then we will be updating the array like this. Let me copy this and pasting here. So this is moving to this place here. So currently this is referring to this value here, and now I'll update that with empty string. Now let me duplicate this line here. Since we are moving this 2 places forward, the pawn will reach up to this place here. So which is 0, 1, 2, 3. So 3, 0 is changed with pawn. So now let's print the array here, chessboard. See, here we have the array. As you can see, we have moved pawn from this position to this position. So this is how we represent pieces in a chessboard using 2-dimensional array. Hope you understood what I meant here. If you want to represent this matrix here, let's create another variable x for now. So here we have the array. So this array is representing the first row, second row, and third row. So the first element is 26, then 12, then 43, then 12, so on. Then we have 17, and then the last row is starting with 36, and so on. So that's all about 2-dimensional array in JavaScript. I can keep talk about JavaScript arrays like this for another 1 hour, but we haven't planned that for this session. There are few important functions to work with arrays like concat, join, split, etc. and etc. We will cover all of those functions once we discuss functions in JavaScript. In next session, we'll be discussing control flow statements like if else, ternary operator, switch statement, etc. So once again, if you found this video helpful, please be subscribed to this channel, CodAffection, if you haven't yet. And please like and share this video with your friends and colleagues. See you in next session.